Hello, and welcome back to another week of Orange Cat Football Chat. Uh, Starting off, the bets didn't do great last week. We went 1-4. The only winning bet we had was Cincinnati beating UCF. We told you all UCF were frauds, and now they've lost a few in a row. So we were right about that. Rutgers got blown out. Oregon beat Ohio State. We all saw the end of that one. We've all heard the 12 men on the field. The NCAA has already issued a new rule change to prevent that from happening again, which I think is a good thing. You shouldn't a pre-snap penalty, which 12 men on the field is. It's a penalty when the ball is snapped, or an offsides, or anything like that where you can get a free play. You shouldn't have time come off the clock. Because if you think about it, the penalty happens before the ball is snapped. You have 12 men on the field before the ball is snapped. You have a player across the line of scrimmage before the ball is snapped. So when you accept the penalty, you effectively erase the play from happening. So with that, you should reset the clock to whatever it was before. Now, in the interest of keeping game times shorter, they're not going to apply that to the entire game length. However, they have already issued a new ruling that under 2 minutes, the offense can elect to reset the clock to what it was beforehand. Other than that, it was an incredible game. Will Howard going down to run the clock out it's a good and a bad ending. That's not how you want to see the game end, but it was an incredible. It encapsulated what college football is, which is an imperfect sport played by imperfect players, and even the best players aren't always perfect. This isn't the NFL. We don't have a Patrick Mahomes. We don't have guys who have been playing the sport 25 years because they're not even 25 years old for the most part. So I think it was just an incredible game that really showed the beauty of college football. Other than that, Penn State beat USC in overtime. That was a tough one for USC. The season's not gone how you want it to go so far, and now you get Penn State, an undefeated team at home, a chance to get a top 10 win, and you lose in overtime off a missed field goal. So that hurts you. Missouri covered the spread. Like I told you, UMass was bad. This was kind of a hate pick. This was less picking with my brain because I believe UMass was 1-4 or 1-5 going into this game, so they're 1-5 or 1-6 now. So I probably shouldn't have picked that one. That one's on me. I don't think Missouri is going to do great the rest of the season. But they beat UMass pretty handily. Bama barely scraped by against South Carolina. South Carolina, when they picked up that onside kick towards the end, I was thinking maybe we could get another Bama upset. But they had some bad clock management. The lineman caught the pass to go and went down for no gain, which effectively ran about 30 seconds off the clock, as opposed to knocking the ball down and allowing them to run a few more plays. And then on the interception, the Bama player almost kneeled in the end zone for a safety, which would have been a hilarious way to go to overtime. But ultimately, he ran the ball out. Bama secured the win. If they had just gone down on their earlier drive, they scored a touchdown when they were up one with, I believe it wasn't a lot of time left. It was about 1:30. But South Carolina had no timeouts. So if they had just gone down, they could have kneeled the clock out, as opposed to giving South Carolina the ball back in a one-score game. South Carolina goes down, scores. They don't get the 2-point conversion, but this is the kind of thing that you wouldn't see under a Nick Saban Alabama team. They would have gone down, they would have kneeled the clock out, and they would have got out of there with a win and no more sweat. But like we talked about last week, this is another one-score game for Kalen DeBoer. He already has 3 this season. And if we go back to my numbers for last week, that would have been, well, Nick Saban averaged 3.3 one-score games a year in his time at Alabama. So DeBoer would have to have no more one-score games the rest of the year, which just isn't going to happen. They still have their toughest games coming up. They've got Tennessee this week. That should be a really good one. I'm interested to see how that game comes out. I'm interested to see how the Georgia-Texas game plays out. That's going to be another great game. We've got some really big games around college football this week. I'm going to go ahead and get into our picks for this week. So first, we have Nebraska over IU. I'm not fully sold on IU yet. I think I've said it a couple weeks ago. I'm just not sold yet. They're going to have to do a little more. They're going to have to keep winning a few weeks for me to believe in them. And I think Nebraska gets it done this week. Wake Forest is an underdog against UConn. Wake Forest isn't a good team. They're not a good team, but neither is UConn. And to be quite honest, I think Wake Forest just goes in there and they might win by 20. So, yeah. Oklahoma minus 114 against South Carolina. If you're South Carolina, it's been a tough couple of weeks for you. You think you have Bama beat, and then you ultimately lose after getting your hopes up, after getting the onside kick. So I think it's going to be a little tough for them to recover from that. Oklahoma got blown out. It's a little easier to get your spirits back up just because that game, you never had hope in that game. So it's not like you got your hopes up and then they got dashed. You just didn't have hope. So I think Oklahoma gets it done there. Tennessee plus 126 against Bama. I think it's going to be hard for Bama to go into Tennessee. I think that's going to be a really incredible environment. You're going to have a sellout. You're going to have over 100,000 Tennessee fans there. And you're coming off a loss to Vandy and then a close game against South Carolina. You're not used to that if you're Bama. So I think Tennessee will get the job done. Finally, I've got a bit of an upset pick here. I've got Georgia Tech plus 400 against Notre Dame. Notre Dame's had some iffy games. They lost to Northern Illinois. They beat Louisville. I think Georgia Tech is a better team than a lot of people give them credit for. They got the best version of Florida State that anyone has gotten all year, and they beat them in Ireland. They played a tough game against Louisville, at Louisville. So I think Georgia Tech is going to get the job done here. I think they're plus 400 right now, which is a pretty big underdog. But I think they're underrated a little bit. I think Notre Dame is a little overrated. So putting that together, I think there's some money to be made on this game. And I think Georgia Tech could win this game outright. So those are my picks this week. We're minus 1.6 right now. So that's bad news for me. That's good news if you're producer Daniel. So hopefully we can get this back in the positive. I don't want to do the one chip challenge, but if I have to, I have to. Hopefully we didn't have a whole lot of upsets this week. We had a lot of overtime games, though. We had Purdue go to overtime against Illinois. We had the USC Penn State game go to overtime. LSU Ole Miss was another great game, went to overtime. LSU pulls that one out at home. Ole Miss kicks the field goal in overtime. LSU gets the score. And a few more that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. But we had another great week. Less upsets, which is unfortunate, but we'll take what we can get. Hopefully we get a few more upsets this week. And thanks for watching.